So we've got Keith in Ohio who supposedly has evidence for the supernatural.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah, we can. Thanks for calling.
Oh, you have no idea how honored I am. Yeah, I'm a truck driver from Omaha, Nebraska. Okay, and I'm in Ohio. And I want to actually drive down to you guys to watch your show and sit in. I'd love that, and go out to eat with you guys real fast. Okay, so I was wondering, the word hypothetical raises red flags with you guys.
I have no problem. I have no problem with hypotheses.
Okay, cool. Now, real fast. Now, if you guys were, this is having to do with paranormal. Okay, so if you were in a supposed open field during the daytime with 5 other people with you, maybe all of you are atheists, and this supposedly is a haunted place. There isn't any twigs or anything. You all had shirts on, and you were standing 5 feet apart from each other. Now, all of a sudden, randomly, if you guys got scratch marks underneath your shirts on your back on the same handprint, I was actually kicked out of the Atheist Experience, whatever, on Facebook. Nothing with you guys. They thought I was a troll. But asking that question, and the answer was, from some people, it was a legitimate question, but others, it was, I can't explain it. I don't know. But if that happened to you guys on a personal way, what would you suppose, or your idea? And also on the side note, I would recommend, if you guys, of course, don't believe in the supernatural, spending the night at a place that is supposed to be haunted or
I've already
something
done
for yourself.
that.
But okay, that's cool. I like that. Now, what would happen in the scenario of the hypothetical situation I described?
I tell you what, I answered all this over and over yesterday, so I'm going to let Tracy just knock it out of the park real quick.
I'm not sure what you mean by, I'm not sure what you're asking me. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, no, I understand the scenario you're describing, but what is it that you're asking from me?
Would you think that would be a supernatural thing that would happen?
I wouldn't think anything of it. I wouldn't think anything of it. I wouldn't know what to think about it. Why would I think anything when I don't know what caused it?
Well, if it was a supposed place, if this happened, and people don't have any idea what happened, but if it happened to you personally, you would basically say, oh, I don't know, I just got scratched underneath my shirt, and no one touched it, and everyone had the same marks on their back. We don't understand.
Right, that's what you just described, and that would be my assessment of what happened.
And last question, what would it take, or I know this Hebrew stuff, whatever in the sky, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with, that wouldn't even convince me there is a God, personally, or whatever. But what would it take for you guys to believe in the supernatural, or have you ever had any experiences of your own where there was a possibility? No? Or what would it take for you guys to...
I think what you're asking me is, what would it take for me to be convinced that there's a supernatural dimension to reality? Is that the question?
Yes, and have you had anything happen that you could have possibly thought might have been, like, after somebody died, you woke up at a certain time, or had a scent, or keys were moved, or something?
In the past, when I was a kid, for example, I had all kinds of superstitious ideas about the world. So there was a time in my life when I did subscribe to a lot of superstition. I don't anymore. And I think since becoming a skeptic, I have not had an experience that has made me question whether or not it had a supernatural explanation, because I don't know what a supernatural explanation even looks like. And that's the problem. This is the problem. Like what you described in the field, right? You're saying, you know, would that be convincing, a convincing scenario for the supernatural? And I guess my question is, why would I assume the supernatural manifests that way? Like, what is it about the event that you think you'd have to know something about the supernatural and how it functions and how it manifests before you could look at the result and say, that's the supernatural? It's almost like saying, did something get burned? right? We know a lot of times what something looks like if it's been burned. Like when I bought my house, one of my cabinets has a burn mark on the, so clearly someone had a fire in the kitchen because I've got a cabinet that's burned. And we recognize that. Now, what if I'd never seen anything burned ever? Why would I have an idea about what caused it if I've never seen anything burned? The reason that I have an idea about what might have happened to the cabinet is because I understand how a burn looks. And so my assumption, and I could be wrong, but my assumption in looking at it is this looks very much like what a burn looks like, what fire does to a cabinet. But if I've never seen fire do anything, or if I've never been able to examine fire and the results of fire, how would I know what the manifestation of the result of a fire would appear to be?
So what you're saying is because you don't even know, let's say, like fire, you wouldn't even know what fire was,
right.
Therefore you wouldn't even know what to call it.
Right, why would I start saying, hey, fire did this? And it's like, well, what is fire? You don't know what fire is. You've never seen it. You've never examined it. You're using this word that doesn't even mean anything. And I mean, it literally has no meaning until there's something there to examine.
Now, you can examine the evidence of something done underneath 5 of your shirts simultaneously.
Yeah, you can see a scratch. Right, yeah, you can see that people are scratched.
That? If
I don't know, that's what I'm saying. It's like asking what caused the cabinet to look that way if somebody's never seen a fire.
Or something to be thrown across the room. So basically you're saying there's nothing that you would believe that the supernatural exists because there is no foundation.
Well, what I'm saying is that if we did some investigation of the flying objects, or we could do further investigations of the scratch marks and how they appear, and we could get if there were some way to gather evidence for a cause. What you've got is the event. This is like what Matt was saying about the moon. You've got the event, and yeah, you can look at the event, but we know what scratches look like, and we're saying, okay, these appear to be scratches, but what caused them? I mean, even in your story, if you're saying it's a supernatural attribution, what does that mean? How did the scratches, Matt? Like, how did we get scratches on us? You're saying, well, it could be supernatural. Well, supernatural how? How did the supernatural scratch us?
It really doesn't. Maybe don't even call it the supernatural, but something invisible or something visible just happened to cross.
Okay. Keith, stop.
Yep, Matt, go ahead.
Isn't everything either visible or not visible? You just said either the invisible or the visible did something. Doesn't that include everything?
But you don't believe in visible. Invisible.
Keith, your argument is that one item in a set of all items did something. That tells us nothing.
So one, meaning invisible, would have caused that.
Everything is either visible or not visible, correct?
Yes, and that would be a non-visible.
Stop. So when you said that the scratch was caused by something visible or caused by something invisible, what you're saying is the scratch was caused by something, and it could be anything.
Correct.
Then how do you reach a conclusion about what it was?
Well, because all 5 eyes saw that no one was behind them.
It doesn't matter.
Something caused it, so you don't know
so
what it was.
You haven't even ruled out the visible there yet. All you've ruled out is whether or not somebody saw it. There are things in the other room that are visible that I can't actually see right now, right?
Correct.
So your first step is you haven't even ruled out things visible. You've just ruled out whether or not it was seen. My question is, how do you determine what the cause of those scratches were?
You would determine what it's not possible to determine what the scratches were from.
Keith, then how is your example in any way relevant to whether or not someone accepts supernatural explanations?
Can you repeat it one last time? I promise.
How is your example in any way relevant to whether or not someone should accept supernatural explanations?
Because there's a possibility of it being that.
How do you know that? Well, okay, first of all, actually, before you even answer that question, no. You just acknowledged there's no way to tell, and yet your example implies that one could be reasonable in accepting a supernatural explanation for those scratches when you just acknowledge that there's no way to tell. If there's no way to tell, how could you possibly reach the conclusion that the supernatural is the best explanation for that?
What is a possibility okay? Does that pass in your books that it could be a possibility?
Okay, here's the problem which Tracy tried to address. If you don't know anything about fire and you've never had an example of fire, there's no reason to conclude that fire is possible or a likely explanation. First, you need a definition and understanding of fire, and then an understanding of what fire can do. You can't even say that the supernatural is possible. You haven't demonstrated that. You haven't defined what supernatural is. You haven't demonstrated that it's possible. And how could it then be a possible explanation until you've done that?
Well, because it also can't be impossible either.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
No, because all we know is the scratch marks underneath the shirt.
Right, that's all we know.
Scratch marks are irrelevant. Scratch marks are irrelevant to the question of whether or not the supernatural is real and can be used as an explanation. You say the supernatural is possible, and I said, how do you know the supernatural is possible? And you said, because it can't be impossible. How do you know that?
Well, because of what happened about...
No.
I keep on going back to the scratch marks.
I know, and that's the problem. That's the problem.
That's
the problem. You keep going back to something that cannot possibly demonstrate and is irrelevant to the question. The supernatural, we'll set aside how we define it for a second. The supernatural is either possible or impossible. You think it's possible, and when I asked why, you said because it can't be impossible. And I asked, how did you determine that the supernatural cannot be impossible?
Yes, but you're kicking my ass with logic.
Yes.
I understand. It's fine. You're cool. No.
All I want is for you to answer the question. You think that something is plausible. You think that something is possible. And your reason for thinking that it's possible is because you claim it can't be impossible. Now, if you can demonstrate successfully that it cannot be impossible, then I would accept that it's possible. But you haven't done that.
But nothing is 100% all the time without evidence.
I don't even know what that sentence had to do with what we were talking about.
I'm not sure what it meant.
No, but the thing is, I just don't. The bottom line is, what would it take for you guys to...
No, Keith.
Type of evidence?
Keith, the bottom line is this. The answer to your question is, what would it take to convince us that the supernatural is real? It would start with a logically sound argument supported by evidence that, in fact, the supernatural is real, has been defined. It simply is not going to convince us to say, well, it can't be impossible. And then when I ask, how do you know it can't be impossible? You flounder around and say things that don't even make sense. How do you know that the supernatural is possible?
What way can you measure it? Because it's hard to measure.
I would say, as far as I can tell, we don't have any way to measure it. Not that it's hard to measure.
What would we even be measuring?
It's difficult to measure the volume of the lake, behind my house if all you've got is a tablespoon. But I don't even see a lake here.
Something invisible causing something that we don't know what's causing it. Like
we don't know what's causing it
on the wall.
And if you don't know what's causing it, you can't. Then you don't know if it's a supernatural cause. And when you say that it could be, the question is, how do you even know it could be?
Yeah, I hear you. I just wouldn't. If I was in the shoes of being out in the field there, I would be skeptical too. But you would go home saying,
all right,
I want evidence. I would go home saying, I think it's...
Please come in from the field.
I have a question,
Keith,
though.
come in from the field and address the issue.
Yeah, you're in the field, and this happens to you. I'm just curious. What is your explanation for what just happened?
Well, I am more of a... trust me, I'm not the typical... But something invisible would have caused that I can't explain, of course, like you guys are looking for the explanation. I would we tend to believe it would be something supernatural, but you guys
like what?
say, well, I still
like
need
what?
proof.
Like what?
Like an invisible entity.
Like what kind of entity? So now now it's invisible and it's an entity. What are you calling an entity?
Something that did something that you can't see physically with your eyes.
Well, that's bacteria.
Okay, that's large. Somebody that passed on. But the thing is, you can't prove that.
I'm asking why you would even assume it. Like, why would you even start making? Why would you look at the path you're heading down and the pieces that you're putting in place based on a situation where you have no explanation at all and no investigation to determine what has happened, and you're already building this model of a thing that's got like parts and pieces, and from what?
There are Keith, hang on. There are 5 people standing out in your field. Person 1 after this happens says.
A haunted field.
Okay.
Does it matter? I mean, what is haunted?
No, it does matter. No, it does matter, Keith. You don't just get to call it a haunted field. You have to demonstrate it's haunted. But, okay. Let's assume that we've called it a haunted field. Can I finish my thought?
Yeah, sorry.
There are 5 people standing in the field, and they end up with these scratches on their back. Person 1 says, I don't have an explanation for why there are scratches on my back.
Yep.
Person 2 says, I believe that it was, maybe some bacteria or fungus or something like that, even though I don't have evidence for it yet. Person 3 says, I'm convinced that it was some sort of supernatural agent. Person 4 is convinced that it was an alien death ray and that didn't kill him. And person 5 says it was God Almighty who reached down from the heavens and anointed us with a birthmark or a second birthmark. Which one of those 5 people has the most reasonable, most defensible position?
That was, wow. I'm very impressed, Matt. That was a great example. You know what? None of them have any evidence.
Bullshit.
Well,
all right.
They all have the same evidence.
They have the same evidence.
Right.
Okay.
But as far as what caused it, they don't have any.
So who's the most reasonable person of those 5?
Can that be subjective? I don't.
I'll give you a hint.
What would you think, guys?
The person who says they don't know what happened. That's the person that's most reasonable because they're recognizing that they don't have sufficient evidence to reach a conclusion. That person is acknowledging that I don't have enough evidence to reach one of those other conclusions or any other proposed conclusion. So for now, I'm going to say I don't know because that's honest and accurate.
And let's wait till we have information that helps us determine a cause.
Now that we've excluded person number 1, which of the remaining 4 is most reasonable?
Well, out of the 3 or 4 left, number 2.
The one that is appealing to natural causes about things that we know, because we know that just not seeing something, it still could be something like a bacteria or something like that, right? Okay, so now we've eliminated 2 people who as the most reasonable. The 3 left. Who's the most unreasonable of all?
Well, of course, I know where you're going. The 3rd one.
No, the most unreasonable of all is the God one at the end. So what they've done is they've added a whole bunch of specifics. The 3rd one just says, hey, there's something supernatural. The 2nd one, well, actually, probably the 4th one would be because alien death ray, whatever. But the point is, by Occam's razor, the more that you add to this that you don't have justification for, the further you depart from having a reasonable standing.
Yeah, you know what? I just have to say the psychological reason why people, I think, believe that is because of the way they were raised and what they have experienced in the past or seen on TV or whatever. And so they jump to conclusions to put pieces together how they think based off their experiences without having...
I agree that cultural experiences will push you toward particular explanations, especially for things you don't understand. There are certainly situations where there's like a really good story called Shakespeare in the Bush, and there's an example where somebody is talking about a ghost in the story of Hamlet, right? And they say that Hamlet's father, he sees his dead father's ghost, and they start to explain it, and they're explaining the story to a group of people who live in a culture where ghosts are not understood. So they have no cultural context for ghosts. And so what they do is they say, no, it couldn't be this thing that you're saying. Dead people don't communicate, like a dead person doesn't communicate. They said it must be like some sort of a specter that was put into Hamlet's head by a witch, because they had a cultural context for that. So for them, when you see dead people, it means that there's a witch that is manipulating your mind to make you see this thing, and it's probably very evil, and you shouldn't trust it, which kind of blows the story of Hamlet, because the whole idea is that it was his ghost father trying to tell him about the murder. So in the situation where a person's trying to tell the story of Hamlet, they're using a cultural context where ghosts can appear, and especially come forward if they had a bad death and they're trying to get help. But in the context of the people that were hearing the story, there's no such thing as a ghost, but there are witches, and they can make you see things. And so they determined that that the story is actually describing a specter sent by a witch. So
last question, Keith, and then I'm going to move on to other callers. Now that we've established that the most reasonable answer is I don't know, if you were to be out in that field now, would you still conclude that it was likely a supernatural entity?
I would have to say, thinking through, if you were by me and explained it the way you did.
What difference does it make if I'm in the field? You keep going to things that have no bearing on the question.
Oh, no, I'm not disagreeing with you. Actually, I would because of you explaining to me those 5 situations, if whatever, I would actually be able to say I don't know.
Cool.
Would be the right thing to say out of my mouth.
You are getting a round of applause right now from everybody on the other side of the glass.
You are.
How come? How come?
Because they are happy that you understand the point. I mean, and I don't say that's not a facetious thing. Well, anybody, I guess could be wrong. But
So I lied about that being the last question. Because you got that answer. Let me ask you this. Is something possible just because it hasn't been shown to be impossible?
Is something possible just because it hasn't shown to be not possible?
Yes.
Yeah. So anything is possible.
No,
not anything. I have to be careful not to words with you because you're the best at.
So this is. Let's try this again real quickly.
Okay.
We have a claim. Is it possible that this claim is true merely and only because it hasn't been demonstrated that it's not true?
It is possible.
No.
Because it hasn't been demonstrated.
Okay, has it been demonstrated that I can flap my wings and fly like a bird?
No, it hasn't.
Has it been demonstrated that this is impossible?
Oh, yeah, with what you're saying, yes.
No.
It has been demonstrated.
Keith, when has it been when was it demonstrated that it is impossible for me to flap my wings and fly?
When is it? You have never flapped your wings and fly.
How do you know that? How do you know that? And just because I haven't done it, does that mean it's impossible?
Well, here's a better way to wait. Can I try this, Keith? I'd like to try this.
Okay.
Is something cold just because it hasn't been demonstrated to be hot?
Yeah. So if something hasn't been demonstrated,
we were so close.
Here's what Matt's trying to get you to understand.
So close.
Well, here's what Matt's trying to get you to understand. Let's say that we have this thing and we don't know if it's hot or cold. We haven't demonstrated it to be hot. That doesn't mean it's cold, because it could be hot. Just because we haven't demonstrated it to be hot doesn't mean it's not hot. That's what Matt's trying to get at. It could still be hot. It may not be cold, right? It may be hot, and just because we haven't demonstrated it as hot doesn't mean it's cold.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to this, and I'm going to play it after this episode is over, and I will totally get it. But I have another question for next week. Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here. I'm trying to find out if I'm on the show next week or not.
Or if it's Russell.
I'm pretty sure I'm not, because my family's down. It's Russell, so you can ask Russell and talk about your next question.
But I will totally get what you're saying, after I listen to it.
Okay.
But
I hope so.
Thank you again. I love you guys.
Thank you.
So
Thanks,
much.
Keith. I know it's dead air afterwards, but it's like we were right there.
You know what, though?
It's a difficult thing to kind of,
Keith was an honest caller.
yeah,
And that's the thing.
which is why he got a round of applause.
He's an honest caller.